Hello again, everybody. You got Marcel here. As I was traveling to my classes today, I started considering the state of society, the way the world is functioning these days, and I decided to kind of articulate my thoughts into something of a scenario. Picture for a moment that you're on a large bus, a giant bus, and there's tons of people climbing around in there, climbing over the seats, yelling, screaming, throwing stuff. It's just chaos, but they're all trapped inside of this big bus. And as you're something of a curious person, you look down at the floorboards where the engine compartment should be, assuming in this bus that it's down below, and you see light shining through, wind and dirt and stuff brushing through the cracks in this little floorboard. You reach down and you pull it open, and where the engine should be, under this engine compartment spot, there's nothing. You see the ground rushing by, like there's no engine in the vehicle. So of course this puts you in a state of panic, and you start pushing your way through the crowds of idiots screaming and yelling and fighting over everything, each other, and you make your way up to the front of this bus, and where the driver should be, you see a crowd of just angry, screaming idiots fighting each other, clawing at each other, grabbing for the steering wheel. You would climb through to fix the situation, but you can't because there's so many people all fighting for that spot that it's impossible to get through all of them. But once you've made it up to the front of the bus, you look out the front windshield to see the most terrifying part of all. The bus is heading downhill towards the edge of a rock face, and it's going to go careening down off the edge of a cliff any minute. One false turn, one false move, and everyone dies. That is essentially the predicament that I find myself in. In my case, referring to American culture, of course, that in many other places this may be the same scenario that people are dealing with. I see society as that giant bus, metaphorically speaking. We're all trapped in it together, we all have to put up with it, everybody's fighting and arguing with each other to try to get ahead. The concept of leaving society as a possibility, for the example of maybe jumping out a window of the bus, could cause the person great harm. Now, I'm not referring to going MGTOW, I'm referring to like living as a hermit, going out in the woods and completely turning your back on society. It is possible. You could do it, but to the sum of, in the case of the bus, rolling around and getting the crap kicked out of you with rocks and stuff and losing half of the things you brought with you. You can't take them if you're getting crushed against a bunch of rocks. In the sake of an actual societal scenario, you're not going to have all of the opportunities or the conveniences that you have within a society if you left it. You're basically going to be on your own. But it is a possible option. You could make it, at least in theory. Looking down and finding the engine has been stripped out of the vehicle symbolizes to me the fact that society, the things that founded it, the parts of it that gave it power, that pushed it to where it is today, are getting stripped away from the ground up. The fundamentals of our own culture, our society, things like Social Security, for example, has been stripped and pillaged. It's no longer got any value to it. The people that are paying into it today are the ones that are actually paying for those who are retired today. There's no longer a pool there. A better example may be the fact that a lot of the men that on their very backs built this country are getting shamed, and that ability to even build more is being taken away from them. They're getting brainwashed and, reprogrammed in schools from childhood to think that there's some kind of horrible creatures, that, their own identities are false, and it's just all getting destroyed. So the very things that gave us power in the beginning are getting pillaged away. The engine is gone in the bus. It's just rolling on momentum now. And then moving up towards the front is symbolic of looking to the leadership of the country. Who's steering this country? Where is it going? And once you actually look and see what's going on, it's just a bunch of idiots clamoring for power. And I'm not bashing our president or any politicians in particular, but just look at it in general. The state of society through its leadership. Who has the steering wheel? It would be difficult, if not nearly impossible, for any one person to really make a change, to reach up and grab it. I know, and I'm sure that almost everybody listening could have a better plan that could fix 90% of the problems if it were up to any one person to do it, but it's not. The real problem isn't re-steering society. Almost anybody could come up with a better plan than what's being done today. It's the act of getting through all of the idiots along the way that are going to try and stop you. That is what's hindering everything that we're trying to do to fix all of the problems that we're going through. And then finally, that moment when you look up and see that at any moment we could go off the edge of a cliff is symbolic of the oblivion that could happen the minute society collapses, the chaos, the anarchy. Yeah, it is possible that a lot of people could survive that crash, going off the edge of a cliff. But the masses are going to suffer. The majority of people are going to suffer. And just because I harbor a lot of resentment towards the idiots that are causing most of the problems that we go through in this modern day, at the same time, I don't wish for their suffering. And I would assume that the majority of people wouldn't either. Not to speak for anyone, of course, but in general, people are just going to want to have a good life and basically make things better. They want to live in a state of comfort. So what does a person do in this kind of situation? What is a snake like me to do to change the direction society is going, if not to turn back in that bus and shout exactly what I see happening, in the hopes that some of these people that are, fighting each other and throwing stuff around might turn and look and notice what's going on. Because the ones at the steering wheel, they just want to control where everything is going. They want to get to their stops first. And they really don't care about the cliff on the edge of this abyss that we're driving next to. So the question is, will anyone hear that plea? Will anyone notice what's happening? I just thought that was something of an interesting thought, a unique analogy that I haven't heard before. Kind of wanted to share my perspective. Let me know what you think about my analogy down below. Do you agree? Am I onto something? Is that basically what's happening in society? Do you think it is possible to make a change? From here out, for the rest of the video, I'm basically just going to be discussing some interesting new YouTube drama that I've been putting up with. At least it's new to me. Let me know what you think about this. If any of you have noticed a little bit of unusual activity with my channel these days, videos popping up and then suddenly going back to unlisted, YouTube is doing some rather nasty things, and you're probably going to hear about it a couple of times on my videos recently, so be prepared for that. Essentially, you'll have a video up, like the video I just published yesterday. I'd made it previously, it had been unlisted for quite some time. Everything was looking good. It was where the apple fell. But the video had the green thumbs up from YouTube that it was proper and ready to go. Well, I finally published it, made it public, and within 10 minutes it went demonetized. Now, this is never really, for me at least, it's not about the money. If it were just a matter of losing a few bucks on a video, I wouldn't care. But the minute it goes demonetized, it throttles it back and nobody gets to see it. By that I mean it gets dropped off of people's news feeds, it isn't as visible. You can still see the videos, like they still exist. Some of mine, quite a few of mine, are demonetized right now, but they're still getting views. But that initial 48 hours after a video goes public is critical. That's where 90% of the views that are ever going to exist on that video, unless it trends, are made. That's where that time where it actually gets seen. And after that, it disappears into oblivion unless it trends. Well, in cases of demonetized videos, I really don't have very many of them that ever trend. So some of the more important topics, what I've been having to do is pulling the video down, which means I lost all of those original views that were on it, and the comments and stuff, just gone. They're simply gone. And I take the video and I've been splitting it up into separate parts, and then leaving just generic tags and information on them. And that's the only way that they'll kind of get green lighted. Though the issue with using generic tags is that people aren't necessarily finding it as quickly or as effectively as they would have. So what I might wind up doing is putting up the parts of the video, letting everybody within my community that are already subscribed to me see it, and then afterwards, after that's all done, then I'll put in the tags that draw in people that are actually looking for that topic directly. And it may go back to demonetized at that point, but even if it does, it's already had that 48-hour time period where people will actually see it. I don't think that that's going to come back to bite me, provided that I'm not putting in false tags or something that's not related to the actual topic. Furthermore, there is always the potential for a human factor, and it's not the AI of YouTube, but rather that someone is watching for MGTOW videos to pop up, and if they just generally want to or don't agree with the topic in particular, they are flagging it at mass, or, there's enough of them doing that within the first, 10 or 20 minutes of a video coming up, they just auto flag everything. And although that's possible, within the first 10 minutes of a video being public, I find it very unlikely. This is most certainly a algorithm issue that they picked up on something, but I don't know why an unlisted video would be allowed, but the minute the person actually expects people to see it, all of a sudden it's unsuited. And that seems very disingenuous to me as a creator, and unproductive as far as actually trying to get stuff off of the web. If they think it's inappropriate, then just be upfront about it. Don't wait until they actually publish it and destroy that opportunity with their public to see it, and then all of a sudden, bam, take it off of the monetization list. I'm starting to think it's a dirty trick. But anyway, perhaps it is something I will have to do some more research on. In this case, unlike the previous video I did, don't marry foreign thoughts or anything like that. It was the video referring to foreign people that I made recently. In regards to mail order brides, I had to go through several titles, labels for that video before I finally got it into a monetized status, and then the views that it was receiving actually recovered quite well. There's going to be quite a bit of trial and error, but I promise to keep you all updated on the things that I find, so you can either account for it with what's going on with my channel or other channels. I know Howard Dare, I hear, is having some very similar issues. And keep that in mind when it comes to the funny stuff about seeing videos pop up and then disappear. That's what's happening. It's YouTube screwing around with us. I appreciate your patience. That's about all I have to say for today. If you want to hear more, like, share, subscribe, and until next time, this has been Marcel.